Okay, good afternoon. Um, Welcome to this afternoon's Traffic Commission meeting on today, which is Tuesday, May 9th. We're looking forward to a good session, and we're all set up technologically. Our first order of business is to review March 2023 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The minutes have been approved. I do want to remind you, if you have an item for discussion on this agenda and you're asked to come forward, this is a public meeting, so please come forward to the podium, identify yourself by name and the 100 block of your residence. And if you're not in the city, if you're not from the city, just indicate what town or township you are from, and speak into the microphone so that you can be plainly heard. So we have, we go straight into new business. N'est-ce pas? We usually go straight into the action agenda.
Usually
Sure.
old business first.
So there are a few items of old business to give an update on. The first item, item 12, 2023, considering the request of Isis Davidson to renew permit exemption for 616 East End Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's correct. That's the old business. There had been a motion to table this request to the absence of the applicant. Has Ms. Davidson contacted us?
She sent me an email this morning and apologized that she does work and is unable to make it to meetings, and that was all that was the extent of it, so.
Okay, so this will be, at this moment, it's not an item on the agenda for today, and we'll be addressing that as a matter of business towards the tail end of this meeting.
Okay.
Item 13, 2023, considering the request of Justin Nye with Willow Valley Communities seeking to add short-term parking at 100 block of South Queen Street. The request had been for a motion to table the request until determination could be made regarding the parameters of loading and/or drop-off zones, seconded by Mr. Evans. Is there any follow-up on this piece? Was there some investigation?
I don't know if Sergeant Therese has any.
Sergeant?
I truly believe that the load zone verbiage needs to change. I do not believe that for the intent of to-go businesses, the load zone is the applicable signage or zone for that purpose. I have not seen anything that allows us to be discretionary about it unless there is a verbiage change to that ordinance. I'm not opposed to making it happen, but as it stands right now, in my mind, it is suited for bulk business deliveries to businesses and subsequent loading of bulk items from businesses to be distributed, not for to-go purposes. Unless somebody else has seen something that I haven't seen, I'm certainly open to discussion about it.
And certainly for those of you who may not have been present at the last meeting, the discussion was the request to make these spaces on South Queen Street available for short-term parking for pickup and delivery for food pickups and things like that. But they were to be converting what ordinarily would have been a loading zone to that purpose.
Correct.
So there is as we understand it, there is a specific purpose to the loading zone and a specific need that gets identified when one describes and gets a loading zone, and therefore the purpose to which it was being requested, it doesn't seem to be the appropriate purpose for it to be put. If we were to make a change, what kind of, would it be in the nature of the verbiage, or would it be to set a distinction of one category separate from the second category?
I think either would be acceptable because we did that for taxi stands. I would not see an issue with creating maybe a 10-minute short-term to-go pickup area. I'm not,
As a separate pickup,
as a
it's a
separate,
type of area.
correct, separate and apart from loading zones. Mr. Denai's initial request was for 30 minutes. That time limit in of itself is longer than a loading zone.
Right.
But, I mean, we are in 2023 and more businesses,
Are doing the pickup and drop.
they are, they're doing, whether it's Uber Eats or some other pickup service or just citizens stopping in to pick up food, I think it would be a reasonable option to explore.
Um,
Well, we've leased those spaces to them on a long-term basis, and they have them posted for visitor drop-off or something.
I'm wondering if there's any input from planning as recommendations for this?
Well, we were just discussing what we did for the Marriott downtown, whether that would be an option in this location.
And what was done for the Marriott was?
Those spaces were leased on a long-term basis to the landowner, and I believe they provided signage in the right-of-way. Maybe LPA could clarify that.
Thank you, David.
Dave DeFundal, Lancaster Parking Authority, Manheim Township. The Marriott has leased, we call them meter hoods, although there's no meters anymore. The verbiage stays the same. They lease 5 spaces on East King immediately after their drop-off half circle. And they lease those spaces 24/7, 365, and they are marked as such for Marriott, for unloading, loading, for overnight guests, or for events. That's the purpose of that, but they do lease those from the LPA. They did renew their contract June of 2022 at the mayor's request every 2 years that it be revisited, and it was approved by the Traffic Commission last year.
Is that done in any other situation that we're aware of?
On a long-term basis like that, other than construction projects like 202 North Queen, I am not aware of any others that have that type of look or feel.
In your mind, either David or Douglas, does that suggest the model for which this type of use would be set?
I think so maybe just to clarify, Mr. DeFundal, the estimated cost for a parking space on an annual basis for that is what?
Is $9,000 per space per year.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that will probably be cost prohibitive for businesses to take on. And I do think that there's a unique transportation situation we're trying to address. We just don't maybe have the tool immediately available to us to apply here. I'm imagining that there's some kind of short-term parking pickup use. I just don't know what that is, and we might want to employ that in other land developments. We've certainly encouraged more designs for like rideshare service, drop-off pickup with some of our new land development. So that's something I can see us retrofitting with existing buildings where those services might be useful.
So perhaps what we can suggest is that several of us get together to try to craft what that might be more in the category that you were talking about, a separate category similar to but different than the loading pickup zone,
Sure.
specifically for short-term drop-off and pickup for food or something along those lines.
And I'm absolutely amenable to that. The couple of the huge differences between the Marriott setup, one, the parking spaces were in fact parking spaces that were paid for spaces. Queen Street, these are open parking spaces. Nobody actually pays to park there. The Marriott does not have residential issues like Queen Street does as well, because that's where a lot of those parking spaces are being utilized by residents in the area. That's not to say we can't craft something, in your own words, to make this happen. I mean, I'm absolutely amenable to it.
Right. And my hope would be that it's not just for this one particular location, but for
For others throughout.
situations.
Sure.
So what I'd like to recommend and ask someone to make a motion about is that we craft a working group that may include a member from the parking authority, perhaps yourself. I'm now appointing people to this working committee for which I'm looking for a motion.
I would make a motion that a working group be created in an attempt to come up with a short-term parking solution for food pickup and deliveries at various points throughout the city.
I'll second that.
And might I modify to make sure that we include a member of the parking authority, police?
Absolutely. And I'd like to
And
amend my
planning.
motion to include a member of the parking authority be a member of that working group as well.
Very good.
We would welcome that, Sergeant Therese.
So there's been a motion and a second. Is there further discussion here?
I just wanted to clarify where the definition for a loading zone is. It's very hard to find.
I would agree with you. The basis for that, Cindy, that I'm getting the general definition from would be on the actual load zone application.
Okay.
I cannot find the specific definition of a load zone anywhere in city ordinances. Ms. Smith has assisted me as well, and we cannot find it.
So
But
the
again,
20-minute duration for a loading zone
right, that's on the application.
on the application.
Right, and it's also part of the ticketing process as well, not only from the LPA, but also from the Bureau.
So
I'm just going to say, I would rather that we try and lump these types of uses into one, like, rather than trying to create a separate area. I think it would be more beneficial if it's just considered still a loading zone, but allowing for other uses potentially, so. But I'm sure that could still be discussed as part of the working group.
I would agree, sure.
I agree that if it's discussed, so the distinctions are made clear and that they are addressed accordingly.
Right.
So that there might be loading purposes, there might be pickup and drop-off purposes.
Sure.
Be made clear and clearly identified where one can find this information.
And we would also revise that loading permit application as well to include all of these other options that would be available, sure.
And the conditions under which they'd be approved.
Agreed.
Okay, so with those modifications, is there any further discussion at the commission level? Is there any discussion at the public level? Members from the public would like to comment. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Again, this is an opportunity for us to address something that's often a persistent challenge. The next item from old business, item 14-2023, consider the request of Chris Peterson to have a speed bump installed on the 400 block of College Avenue. It had been suggested to have the electronic speed sign placed, seconded by Mr. Smith. The motion was unanimously approved. Is there any follow-up or status on this?
The speed zone, the speed trailer is on site. I do not have the data available, but it is on site.
So it'll still take some more time to get the data. It may be available for the next meeting?
Actually, it may be available in about 30 seconds.
Oh,
Appears as if Lieutenant Radmore did in fact send that to me.
okay, very good.
And now you're going to put me on the spot and ask me to figure
Um,
this out.
Well,
We
Mr.
can have
Campbell,
some Jeopardy music.
I believe the resident is here as well, and at last meeting, we didn't have a chance to hear from Mr. Peterson, so would Mr. Peterson like to add any comments to this?
Hi, I'm Chris Peterson from 419 College Ave, and thank you for
Welcome.
letting me present here. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the block between James and Lemon near the North Museum. Yeah, probably most people are familiar with that. One of the issues on that street is the back-end parking, and with the increase in traffic, with Liberty Street being opened up, there's a lot of, it's kind of a cut through, I think, for traffic, especially from 4 to 6 o'clock in the evening. But there's also a lot of cars that come fast, and when you're trying to park, you have to back up almost, and the cars either won't let you because they're already behind you, or there's an inability for them to even back up and help you because things are going pretty fast. There's children on the block, there are people that park to go to the dog park, the North Museum, and there's a lot of fast traffic. Like, I'm not sure what the study will reveal. I know when I saw that sign, I slowed down even more, but
I can actually tell you if you want. I
Yeah.
can tell you that in a month's time, there was 63,971 reads.
Wow.
In that block. The average speed, 25.2 miles an hour. That is the average speed in that area. The highest average speed that I'm seeing is 26.6 miles an hour, and that's at 1 a.m. and 5 a.m.
okay, thank you. I have noticed that the streets that run parallel to this do not have this back-end parking, and they're 25 miles an hour too, also. So I kind of am thinking even 25 may be too fast for that area. And I was also, there are many times when cars do speed there, and I was going to sit out and take some visuals filming of that for you. But anyway, I guess it seems to work further down on the block, slows the traffic down. It's hard to cross the streets. Traffic is fast there. So I just thought it was a safety issue. I mean, I feel strongly, but I understand there's a lot of issues with this. So I appreciate it.
So in principle, your request was for your specific request was for a speed bump, but your primary request is for something that finds a way of slowing down the traffic, whether that's changing the speed limit, or there might be some other, if there's some other action that might be taken. Given what we're learning, I know we're still kind of in the process of gathering information, but given what we're learning, is there anything that we'd like to just present in terms of either what we're hearing or possibilities, or has there been any looking at this yet?
Engineering did look at it a little bit. We had an engineer that went out and took a look. There wasn't a whole lot that we came up with as far as solutions. There's potential of maybe adding some edge lines to kind of better define the travel lane and make it appear a little bit narrower so that people are maybe wanting to slow down a little bit. We also talked about potentially doing some daylighting, which is putting the cross hatching like in front of the crosswalks to sort of identify that these are no parking areas and try and highlight, that there are some pedestrian crossings. But short of that, we didn't come up with many other solutions. I know, a lot of people are requesting speed humps for traffic calming, and we're just not in a position right now to prioritize where those locations should be. With the Vision Zero implementation funds that we have, we're hoping to identify sort of a neighborhood slow program so that, neighborhoods that are trying to slow traffic through some of their streets there can sort of be a process and a prioritization related to that. So hopefully in the next year or so we'll have something more related.
We actually have some slow down signs that we probably should have brought to
Yeah, that's true.
to Traffic Commission. In the context of Vision Zero, are there particular things that we're looking at? Is this, for instance, on the high injury network?
I don't believe College Avenue is on the high injury network, so that makes it a little bit less of a priority, but the neighborhood slow zone, I think, would be sort of the entire city, not just necessarily on what we consider a higher injury network where our injury crashes are happening.
And if it is considered as a neighborhood slow zone, what does that mean? What does that entail? What does that, how would it?
I don't know at this point.
Oh, okay.
The program still needs to be developed, but it would hopefully identify some prioritization, but also, allow residents the opportunity to bring concerns and be able to champion those efforts
So,
towards some kind of implementation.
so it certainly is clearly on the radar of several of us as departments. Are there other comments from the Traffic Commission regarding how this zone might be considered? Are there any other comments? Or is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I defer to you to the solutions. That speed bump was just the first thing that came to mind. But my car was struck on that street and was undrivable, broke the axle, and then a neighbor's car was struck probably 3 months ago. So if you look at the accidents, and there's also been some episodes of road rage where people stop to park, the people behind them put the horn on, there's an altercation. I mean, I've witnessed that. I've been involved in it once myself where somebody got out of a car because I stopped to back in. And so I just put those things out there. But I appreciate you hearing me today.
It is interesting. We do have back-in parking in several other parts of the city as well. And it may be interesting or useful to see to what extent these instances you're talking about are distinct for this, or if they're in common in other areas. Are there other comments from the public on this item? Please. And again, just identify your name and the 100 block.
Good afternoon, Bill Hannigan, 300 block of College Avenue. Apparently we're neighbors, so we're going to have to get acquainted. I'm just curious about the distance of that block between Buchanan, Lemon, and James. Do we know what distance that is in terms of feet?
We're checking via the map.
I think that might be something I would follow up with from
600.
some preliminary, study of the land development ordinance. Crosswalks come to mind.
You're saying it's 600 linear feet?
That's a ballpark definition, I think, from the land development plan. 600 feet is maybe the margin you would look at to install a crosswalk. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Adriana Atencio, 700 block of 5th Street. I ride my bike up College Avenue pretty frequently, and it would be nice to have more signage about sharing the road, not necessarily sharrows, but signage, because people tend to get frustrated. That's on an incline, and when you're coming right out of the bike lane, going into an incline, especially if you're on a single speed, you might slow down a little bit. And people can't really pass you because you can see the stacking right there. So in addition to our slow down in the neighborhood's traffic, just reminding people that we need to share the road and be calm and be kind would be great signage to have as well.
I fully agree with you there. The more that we can all be more civil as we encounter these situations in a pedestrian-friendly city, the better for all of us. But I think signage and more awareness will help. I may actually have Carl brings down some of these slow down signs right now so that people could take some with them. Are there any other comments from the public? So my understanding, I don't think there's any action to be taken. We're still looking into the matter, and we'll come forward with some recommendations at a slightly later date. Very good. Thank you very much. Oh, do we need to make a motion to table it further? Please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table 14 to 2023.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item in old business, item 16-2023, consider the request from Tony Dastra regarding safety and speeding in the area of the 1300 block of Union Street. There was a motion to table this request to complete a traffic study. So is there a report on the status of the traffic study?
Yes, so, we did look at that. We collected traffic volumes, with the tube counters. And then we also, just did an observation study of this, block as well. Based on the data that we found, the speeds weren't necessarily that high. Again, it was in the range of the 25 miles an hour. I do know that, there's a curve on the street that, maybe can be a little surprising. So the recommendation was to add some, curve ahead signs and, possibly some chevrons as well, on the curve to try and indicate to people that there is a turn in that area.
We also had the speed trailer on that block as well. Much like College Avenue, our average speed was 24.2 miles an hour. However, on Union Street, we had a few anomalies. We had one vehicle between 71 and 75 miles an hour, another between 66 to 70, one more 61 to 65, and 6 vehicles between 56 to 60 miles an hour. So there's definitively a speeding issue on that block, and our intent is to run some speed enforcement details in that immediate area, probably a block or two, one way or the other, and educate folks on proper traveling and speed in the city.
Very good. Those are horrible speeds in any residential neighborhood in the city of Lancaster. That's just horrible. Are these actions that can be done relatively quickly, or would we like a motion to follow through with these recommendations?
We can act on ours immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, similar with the postings.
Okay, so we hopefully will see some changes very quickly. Is there any action that needs to be taken? Yeah, okay, very good.
Administrative, so we can, it can be done administratively.
So it will be done administratively, and we'll be able to report back out to you at the next meeting. Thank you very much. I know Mr. Dastra is not present, but this is exactly the kind of situation we want to be made aware of as things develop. Thank you. So we now move into our action agenda.
Sir?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, please.
Bill Hannigan, 300 College. This is directed toward our member of the police force. Can you give times when these excessive speeds were recorded?
Talking about Union Street?
Yes,
Give me 1 second, please.
thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Carl, I apologize for interrupting you. Do you want to just say a couple words about the signs and what their purpose is and what you're hoping will happen with them? This is Carl Graybill, our environmental engineer from the Department of Public Works.
We have slowed down to save lives signs available for the property. Hopefully, encourage people to slow down as part of our Vision Zero program. That is, we're trying to change things in the city to save lives, reduce the number of severe crashes, severe injury crashes. We see a lot more happen in the next couple of years.
And to get a sign,
Ask. Just ask here at City Hall, you contact us at Public Works, or look for us at the block parties, open streets, and other events.
are these signs available for someone to take today?
Yep, there's 2 of them.
Are there more people who might want signs? Okay, it looks like we've got,
Bring a few more down.
thank you very much, Carl. I
Thanks, Carl.
appreciate that.
Back to your question, sir. I'm sorry, Ms. Smith has to unlock her phone for me. So the 56 to 60 issues. 8 a.m., 1, noontime, 1, 2 o'clock, 1, 3 o'clock, 3. 61 to 65, 1 at 5 a.m., 1 at 6 a.m., 1 at 3 p.m., 1 at 8 p.m. 61 to 65, 1 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and 8 in the evening. The 66 to 70, 1 at 10 p.m., 1 at 6 p.m., and the NASCAR aficionado from 71 to 75 would be at 7 p.m.
I can't see any pattern in that. And if it's winter hours, by 7 p.m., it's total dark.
Would agree.
At this time of year, you'd still see a vehicle at 7 p.m., but it's still, it's a bad
Right.
result that someone is more than triple or as much as triple the speed limit
Correct.
there. It begs for enforcement, please.
It does, and realizing, of course, we could be out, and we typically run our details for 4 hours at a time, and we may or may not get those excessive speeders, but I'm fairly certain at a very minimum, they will slow down upon seeing us, and if we have to actually write citations and take enforcement actions, we can certainly do that with any drivers we come across.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Hi, I'm Brian Ashba. Where were the speeds at for that? Was that on the 1200 block or was that on the 1300 block?
1300 block.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous. And then we've had another accident about 2 weeks ago, same thing. Car flipped around, went the other way, T-boned another car. So it's just a continuation of this going on. And you're more than welcome to sit in my driveway if you want. I would be happy.
No. And I get that. And like I said, obviously enforcement is the last step we want to take. We obviously want folks to be responsible and drive as they should. And is the mere presence of a marked police vehicle enough to slow people down? Generally speaking, yes. However, some folks, they don't always get it, and it takes a citation to bring them back to reality, so to speak. So obviously, we're at that point. We've had the speed trailer out there. We've been a presence. It doesn't seem to be as effective as we had hoped. So our next step is running some details and taking those enforcement actions.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Appreciate
These
it.
markings. Any other comments on that matter? Okay, we'll move forward into the action agenda. The first item on the action agenda is item 21-2023, considering the request of Cheryl Henderson to review the intersection of Manor and 4th Street as a dangerous intersection. Ms. Henderson?
Very hard. But I am the owner of Sisters Hair Salon for 18 years. I've lived there.
What 100 block?
I'm at
even?
735 Manor Street, which is the same thing as 502 4th Street.
Okay,
It's the
thank you.
same building. I'm the big, not there, the picture. I am the big black building. I own the whole building on the corner, basically. Not really. So that, leaving Coral Street leaving from there to leave out of 4th Street, that's the problem. The cars coming from Manor Street are driving way over 25 miles an hour, regardless what it says. They're flying out. And so we can't see when we're trying to leave. That car right there, the truck right there is too close, so we got to pull our car way out, but that car's driving too fast, so there's the accidents left and right. And there's been thousands, I don't know how long in the 18 years I've been there, accidents there every day. And now the neighborhood is more crowded than it used to be, and I'm scared of the kids, of the accidents, of what it's gonna be now. It needs to be not a speed bump, it needs to be a light or a stop sign there. And that marking that they just made all nice and neat, that needs to go a whole car length back, because we still can't see when we're trying to leave Coral Street. Coral Street, Manor Street, accident. Can they see how many's been there in the last 18 years? I don't know. Can somebody tell me what you're?
I don't have the answer.
Oh, I didn't know what your little computer thing. I didn't know. I was gonna do that, but there's multiple accidents. Somebody's gonna get hurt versus there hasn't been a death, but there's been many other accidents. More than 20 since I've been there in my years. I live upstairs now. I lived up there. I moved back, and so I moved back to accidents. What are they gonna do to prevent somebody death? There's been some kids now. The neighborhood was 5 people, not then, but there's so many people. I'm scared of what summer's gonna bring.
Thank you very much, and please stay there for just a moment. What is usually the procedure for looking at intersections like this for traffic calming or other kinds of actions? I'm asking Cindy McCormick, the city engineer for the city of Lancaster.
We would generally do some kind of traffic study to identify, what the speeds were, on Manor Street, probably, and that also look at, the crash history and what types of crashes would be happening. We are limited in that Manor is a state route, so, it's unlikely that we could really do much traffic calming, maybe so as part of those improvements, we just did, as part of our pedestrian improvement project, we're putting daylighting at the intersections, trying to keep cars back from the intersections to improve sight lines. There will also be some vertical delineators that will be installed just to keep, since cars don't always obey the pavement markings, there will be vertical delineators to keep them out of the way as well. This was identified as one of the locations for those improvements, just because we know that Manor Street is on our high injury network, so the entire length of Manor is of concern. But we could, look at longer term type improvements. Basically we're installing sort of a quick build at this point, but we could look at longer term improvements.
So you're saying that there were piano keys put here?
Yes, there should be piano keys, I believe across Coral, and then also the parking on Manor Street is striped out, so as to improve the sight lines.
On Manor, but not on the Pearl part of the intersection where this truck and the red car are.
It may include that as well. Do you know, is there pavement markings on Coral Street as well?
Yeah, that was just done, but that doesn't matter when you're coming up Manor Street, flying up the street. I live there. When I leave, I drive the other way because I'm scared coming out of Manor Street because I'm going to get in an accident. That makes no sense. So those cars are made when we can't see. We have to pull our car out far to see. And then that's when accidents come. I'm scared to leave my home the right way. I got to go the other way because it's too close for that part.
What are the tools that are available to us when we are talking about a state road in the city?
We could look at it. She mentioned a traffic signal. We could look at that if that was something we were willing to entertain, if there were enough traffic volumes or existing crashes. That's also a very expensive undertaking as well. We could do some curb bump outs, something like that to try and slow traffic.
So it certainly commends the traffic study. That would be the initial, which would confirm traffic volumes and traffic speeds. Looking at the more modest implementations that can be done, and then be able to see, based on the results of the traffic study, what can be recommended in the context of a state road.
If they can't put a light there, can they put a stop sign there? And can they move that line farther back? Because
Those, I think, are the kinds of things that would be seriously
Right.
considered under the course
Right.
of a
Because
traffic study.
they just did it. It was all nice. I'm like, no. It looks nice, but it's at the same spot that it was at the beginning. I was going to complain about that line anyway, but they pronounced it more. It should be farther back. We can't see when we're leaving. I want you to leave my salon and try to drive down Manor Street when they're coming up and see if you're not scared. Every one of yous. I'm just saying.
So how long does it usually take to do this kind of a traffic study?
Usually a month or so.
So hopefully conceivably before the next traffic commission meeting, we will have we can have some information about that may support some specific action.
Hopefully, no one gets killed in an accident, and then that's what happened as a result. I don't have kids that live in here. I'm grown. I have grandkids, but I don't want that to happen.
We don't either, and I understand. Our hands, to a certain extent, are tied because to go before the state on a state road, we need to have the data to be able to make the recommendation and make such a justification. And that's what, if there's a motion to do so, we would go forward and have this traffic study done.
I would hope that they wouldn't say a speed bump. Speed bumps mess up, and they don't even exist anymore. After they have to pull it up after every winter when they do the snow stuff, the speed bump is gone. So I only want a light or a stop sign right there. I think that will help.
Cindy,
And the building is way better than that.
Are there other
So, you know.
comments?
in the meantime, what would your thoughts be on bumping back that, increasing that sight line eastbound on Manor? Bump
Yep.
that back.
That'll help.
Another space. So increase that sight line on Manor. Is that something we could do? And I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot by asking. Could we bump that spot back? And then also on Fourth, where that pickup truck is, can we restrict that no parking here to corner as well? So it'll back traffic up on Fourth, it'll give that clear line at that corner. And then once you're on Fourth looking eastbound on Manor, give them a little bit longer sight line in the meantime before and potentially in addition to other measures.
I mean, yeah, the traffic commission could extend that no parking area. I'm not sure if extending it on this, well, is there even parking there on that side
Yes, where
where the pickup truck is?
yes.
Well,
There's parking everywhere on those corners.
Right.
I guess I would want to review whether that's actual obstructing or where that, I mean, obviously, we could mark out the 20 feet from a crosswalk. and
Sure.
Whether it would need to be more than that, I would want to
Okay,
review.
okay.
so am I hearing then that it could be marked out in the short term while the traffic study is going on? Or is it something that needs to wait for the traffic study to be completed? What is the sequence that you're suggesting?
Yeah, maybe it's worth a look just to review the site distance to see if taking that extra space actually improves the sight lines or not
Okay.
first, yeah. So I would say we would do that study first.
So the question I would have for you too is, since Manor Street's one of those, we've had the requests like for Laurel Street, et cetera. Do we want to, do we want to do it for that intersection only, or do we want to do it for that area?
So, yeah, I mean, this is part of the high injury network, so this is an area that we're looking at anyway, on a larger scale related to the Vision Zero work that we're doing, so.
So I want to make a motion. Do I want to just concentrate on Fourth and Manor? Or do we want to do it?
I mean, yeah, I think if that's what we want to take some if we want to take any action immediately, within the next couple months, I would say that we should do that.
I make a
just-
motion to do a traffic study for 2023 for Manor and Fourth. We'll do that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Is there further discussion? Is there any further comments?
Do you want to say anything? She's my neighbor.
Please.
She owns on the store.
Please.
You can speak.
Hi, my name is Wanda, and I own 739 741 Manor Street. They sit outside a lot, and that's called Manor Street Highway. I see cars going like 60, 65, zooming down in the evenings and at night. I have 17 grandchildren, and I'm scared when they're always on the sidewalk. And I'm scared a car's going to get hit and come to my way. Just a couple of months ago, I had a car that went in my sidewalk in front of the store. It's scary when I have my grandchildren playing in front of the sidewalk. And that's a constant, they should put a speed trap. The cops are always around here, but the cars are too, going up and down 50, 60, 65, maybe miles an hour. So in summertime is coming, there's gonna be more. And that's my concern. So I would think a stop sign would be the highlight.
Thank you very much. Other comments?
Adriana Atencio, 700 Block of Fifth Street. So this is my neighborhood. And I walk this quite a bit, and you don't have any sort of light or anything between Ruby and then Dorwart. And what happens too is with Kunzler and all the trucks backing in and everything, sometimes you get some stacking, but you also get a lot of frustrated drivers who speed around each other to cut through then Cabbage Hill. And they go very fast to do that and create really dangerous situations. But when they're not doing that, then they are speeding incredibly fast up and down Manor Street. I do think actually that 4th Street would be a really sensible place to put either a stop sign or a light, because it's pretty much kind of almost equidistant between the light at Ruby and the light at Dorwart. And there is the salon there, and there's also the corner store there that just opened up, and it's a really big hub of activity. It would just be great to have something that would break up that flow of traffic, because towards my end where Ruby is and where Pearl is, we have 2 lights right in a row, so it stops people pretty frequently, but there's nothing in between it. It just creates a big speedway. And we do need something that would slow people down, because the speeds are very, very fast. And as a person who is walking on the sidewalk, usually on my left, your right side, there's nothing that protects you from the street as well. So it would be nice to have something to slow people down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments or questions from the public? So we have a motion on the floor to initiate the traffic study, which could happen rather quickly, and be able to report back no later than the next traffic commission meeting of what can be done. If there are any other short-term, and I know this, I'm embellishing. If there's a question, please let me know. If there's anything immediate that can be done, are we suggesting or authorizing that to be considered, that can be done administratively?
I think we should wait till you see what the study comes up with.
So that it's consistent with what's
Right,
going on?
and then do all the site distance, all that's required, and then make the certain changes can be done administratively, certain will need our action.
Any other comments, questions? So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very, very much for bringing this to our attention. As you heard, this is also already on the High Injury Network, so you'll see some other efforts going on in the relatively near future over the next few months and you're under Vision Zero for the entirety or for a long stretch of Manor Street. But we can take some action virtually immediately on this intersection. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 22-2023, considering the request of Cheryl Love with ELA Group to discuss developing plans for Thaddeus Stevens on South Franklin Street. Ms. Love? Is this queued up to be seen, to be displayed as well?
Perfect. I may not need that.
Okay. Very good.
Good afternoon.
Is this accurate, what's up here now?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Cheryl Love with the LA Group and Joe Wysock with Thaddeus Stevens as well. We are in the midst of our land development plans, going through the review process with the city right now. This plan is a partial set of those plans. So the property itself, Rhonda, could you scoot to sheet 3, please? The property itself is, oh, I'm sorry, you've got the full set there. That's actually fine, that one. This is a demolition plan, so the orientation of our site, Chesapeake Street, is on the right-hand side of the plan, which is north. The Schuylkill Street is to the south, left on the plan. South Franklin Street on the lower part of the plan, which is east, and then a portion of existing Stevens, although it's fairly unimproved, is on the west side. This shows existing driveways that were from the previous Shell recycling plant that was removed last summer from this property. Our current land development plan and part of what we're seeking approval today is the removal of existing driveways, so the lower portion of that plan where the light gray shading is, we would take out approximately 119 linear feet of driveway and curbing and sidewalk in that area, and then install regular curb, vertical curb, and new sidewalks in that zone. If we can go to the layout plan. What we are proposing, that's correct. Yep, sheet 11, thank you. So this plan shows the small hatch that you see at the bottom there for new curbing and sidewalk, which will establish that, and we'll have removed those existing driveways. And then the other part that we are seeking approval on is for two new residential driveways. This is a duplex unit that is planned, and the program for Thaddeus will use this site and this duplex unit as part of what their skilled trades programs will build this throughout the next school year. So the driveways that would be bituminous paved driveways, 12 feet wide, that would extend out to the current Stevens Avenue. We do have future plans, future times that we will return back to this property and create this similar situation with more units down to the left. The center of the site has a stormwater basin that would be installed and such, but we are in the midst of all of those, all of the reviews with the city planners and the other staff at this moment for this specific plan, with the understanding that we are looking to get this one duplex unit approved so they can start site work construction this summer and move towards their programming August. I don't know if Joe wanted to speak to that.
Joe Wysock. So I'm a 2006 graduate of Thaddeus Stevens in Carpentry, and I'm also chairman of the building committee for the foundation, so I'm just a volunteer. But this program is for all the second-year students to come together, so it's over 7 different trades. They come together and build a house, and really our main objective is just to break even, but to allow them to build a house for their second year for them to graduate. So I think, what we ran into is trying to find land for this program, and this is really our last spot for the fall for the students to have a house to build. So we've just been, trying to do as much as we can to push this through, but it is 7 different trades and all the instructors coming down there. It's all daytime work, and, every year our goal in over 50 years of building a duplex home, and it just, it truly changed my life going to build a home over in Ayers Court by McCaskey East in 2006, and so just trying to do everything I can to, continue this tradition, and I think we have a good opportunity here to reuse a piece of land that was the old Shell property. We went through the demo permit and, just trying to put some nice houses there that are looking, for a first-time home buyer that's affordable. We just market value, and we, like anybody else, everybody has the opportunity to, to purchase the house. But for the students, it means a lot. So that's my story, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, so we're open to questions, but really from the Traffic Commission, we're seeking removal and replacement of those existing driveways, and then the 2 residential driveways at this point in time, leaving that duplex out to the current paved space on Stevens Avenue there. There's longer range plans, but we'll get to those.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there comments or questions about this? I look towards you, Douglas, because you may be more familiar with what's coming down the pike.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Campbell, and good to see you both. First, I just want to say that, this program that Thaddeus Stevens has is, I think, one of the hallmark programs for the college and something that the city derives a lot of benefit from in creating new housing and jobs and workforce training. So it's fantastic what you guys are doing, and I know you've contributed a lot of houses, especially in the Northeast over the years. So looking forward to more of that. This is a project that is under, sketch plan review, or will be soon. We are reviewing it through a land development process. Did you want to add to that, Cheryl?
We've submitted it as a final land development plan, which is currently what's under review, I believe, Douglas.
Okay, and that includes the withdrawal that you made and the resubmission?
Correct. The withdrawal was for different lot subdivisions, so yes, our last submission that had come in was the full 28-page final land development review.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So it's formally under land development review. I think my question is really, and this shouldn't be a surprise to you, is about the combined driveway comment that we've had. Looking around in that neighborhood, there are a variety of different housing types and opportunities. There are many houses that have access to their property through a rear alley. Some have no off-street parking at all. Some do have driveways in their front yards. And I understand you're seeking a special exception from zoning to get the driveway permission. Stevens Ave, just for everyone, the commission's benefit, is a public right-of-way. Although that street isn't fully connected, the goal is that it will be in the future as Thaddeus Stevens continues to develop these parcels and additional housing. So that is serving as the primary frontage, even though there aren't many houses that there are no houses that currently front on Stevens Ave. That is becoming the new frontage, and it is partly because of how the grades fall on the site. So I think that all makes sense to have Stevens Ave become more of a street. But I think the future goal would then be having 8 separate driveways break up the sidewalk expanse there. And curious for your thoughts and comments, and maybe for Cindy's as well, the benefit of having combined driveways that may then only set up 4 breaks in the sidewalk versus 8 driveways that then set up, other tripping hazards and opportunities for conflicts, et cetera.
Right, understand. Currently, the architectural plans are developed through students as well. Those are going through reviews at the City Building Codes Department currently. The entire floor plan design is set up for this unit with the garages as they're placed. And architecturally, this specific layout was designed with this intent. I would offer, we certainly could consider that in the pieces that move forward. But right now, that plan is under review as a full architectural design that is already at Building Codes Department. Joe, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and I think, some of the history, and I'd be surprised too, I think a lot of the feedback that we get from the shared driveway is just the issues of people driving on someone else's driveway, who's cleaning what, who's resealing it, who's parking where. Whereas when we sell the homes, we're able to just have a fine line of here's your yard, here's the other yard, and you're only worrying about grass and seed and not who's parking where on whose driveway. And we always kind of get caught in the middle of things as the foundation and the seller of it is this person's, so it just seems to be easier for us. It works with our building program in our house, but it's so much easier to say, okay, here's your grass and here's your grass. And there's no sharing of driveway, who's parking where, just as, I can't even, I know at least 24 years, I think we went back, but that's always how it's worked out for us to be a non-issue, so.
Yeah, I mean, just from a streetscape perspective, it really limits the number of trees that can be planted, and obviously the more interruptions in the sidewalk,
Right.
the less ideal it is from a pedestrian perspective. So that's the issue that we have with the separate driveways.
With the street, when that does go through, and with our cooperation between Thaddeus and the city on that, as we've been talking offline, our intent would be that a concrete sidewalk would remain continuous through there, so that portions on the front of this driveway, when it becomes removed, would be similar to your downtown district areas. The sidewalk itself would continue at one surface through, consistent without depressions, and have that driveway apron similar to other areas more than a bitumen residentially scale, and maybe that is technically what's required. But eventually, the full sidewalk that goes through there would remain flush and consistent. So I think the tripping issue, from a walkability standpoint, it would be one continuous sidewalk. I would note that our land development plan itself is providing in excess of the number of shade street trees that are required, and we are actually on their shade tree agenda. So we've been able to place the number of trees, in fact, some excess as to what is required. I certainly understand where your comment's coming from, but then I'm also sympathetic to the needs of the college. And in this instance, the floor plan is currently submitted. The Marshall Street on the corner, upper left, up on Schuylkill Street, was taken through planning with dual separate driveways. That is close to being finished for their sale, and it's not atypical from what we've looked at along some of the homes on Marshall and some of the other side streets in the neighborhood as well. So I agree, there's a mixture of everything. But I think our hope is that in this instance, the plans are under review, and I think it's something we could continue discussions on the future lots. I don't know.
Cheryl, just to clarify, are you saying that there's a garage that's on the first floor
Yes.
of the building?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so they
there's
would-
garages. You pull in, there's a pull-in garage space that enters that building. So just above where those circle numbers are, where we've numbered the lots 2 and 3, just north of that are up on the screen, or west of it actually, where the cursor is, there is space to pull a vehicle inside that is garage space. Am I correct?
Correct.
So
Yes.
each of those parcels has effectively two parking spaces,
They have-
one inside the building and one
Correct.
outside the building stacked.
Correct. So, and that's why I'm saying it's not an easy change, at least with this specific floor plan from this year's students that is under review at building codes now, because it's not just join the driveways together. The building itself is completely designed around the garage spaces on the internal floor plan layouts, which I realize we're not giving you that benefit of seeing that.
And remind me, the 661 South Marshall duplex that was just built also has the same floor
Yes.
plan? Is that right? You're reusing that here?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so there was a garage on the first floor there as well. I believe there's parking imagined on Stevens Ave, right? In discussions with DPW. I'm also just thinking about how the driveways affect
Right.
parking opportunity on Stevens Ave. I mean, I understand each house is going to have two vehicles, but if we continue to densify in this area, which
Correct.
would be
Correct.
ideal, there's parking demand.
Yeah, I think the concept you all shared across an email a week ago or so did envision parking on both sides, and that there is space of that because of the 50-foot right-of-way that's been verified for Stevens Avenue. So there is space along both edges. I don't think any of the current residential lots that are just off-screen or across the top, those are all basically their backyards. So I would tend to believe the parking on that side plan, the top of the plan, would be consistent or be able to be consistent through the whole duration of that side of the street as well.
Okay.
So,
And just for clarification, that lot size on Marshall was too small to get the garages in there, so that doesn't have that layout. We had to take what we could get for,
okay, it
For
does have
Marshall.
separate driveways, but there's no garage to
Correct.
pull in. Okay.
Sorry, the units we're talking about here, there is no garage on the
I'm
first?
sorry.
Marshall
we're
Street.
building currently around the
Oh.
corner on Marshall. I
Okay.
thought they had garages, but because of the lot size, we couldn't fit.
Okay, that's what I thought. So just pull-in driveways, no under the building parking.
Okay. This, we definitely have garage space internal.
Okay.
As well as driveway space.
Okay.
Are there other comments or questions at the Traffic Commission level?
Mr. Campbell, I'd like to make a motion. First, a couple of comments. I do think that there are some urban form issues here that I would like to see resolved when we do the next set of units. I don't think that there's anything stopping us from changing the pattern with the next 6 units that come
Right.
here.
Okay.
I would encourage you to make sure that you're meeting the 9 units per acre standard in places 2040. It would be disappointing to see, and the county would say the same, to see residential density here not meet the minimum standard for the county when we're in the city. Just on a rough approximation, I think it's borderline right now. So as you think about additional space south of here, please keep that in mind and make sure that we're meeting that 9 units per acre. I would also suggest that we revisit driveway design on the future parcels going south of here. With that said, I would recommend that the driveway removals be approved and that the proposed new driveways be approved conditioned on the zoning hearing board providing a special exception for front yard parking.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further commentary at the council, at the commission level? Is there any further commentary from the public? If I may add one more thing, I have a question. Do the students design the buildings as well?
Yes, that is correct. They design it and do all the floor plan work and everything, make the drawings and, yes.
So one thing that may be helpful, aligned with what Mr. Smith has said is the idea of having the students be involved in some of these land pattern issues as well, so they not only can understand what some of the implications are and what the impact is, but also how those kinds of things get resolved in the process of design, and not necessarily have a building designed that needs to try to fit itself into something. I mean,
Yep.
certainly, when I was an architecture instructor, that was exactly what we did, and the students learned so much more in that kind of a more enveloped, comprehensive process.
As a foundation member, I'll let Dr. Bianchi's over here from the college side, if you want to, I think it's a great idea to have the students see what is happening here and have them come and watch it, and they can.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. This year we started the 7th.
If you would, so that, because
Yeah.
it's a public meeting and it gets recorded.
You don't want me up there. You'd be like,
Yeah,
stop.
we do.
You'd be like,
Yeah, we
"Cut
do.
it." Okay. So we just started a civil engineering construction technology program where the students are studying land development, road work, surveying, pipe work, just all the infrastructure needs in terms of land development. So we're looking at our civil engineering construction technology program to be involved in that land development process. So you were right on with your recommendation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad and excited because I have such respect for Stevens, and a lot of our staff in Public Works comes from Stevens, and we're wanting all those other opportunities where the city of Lancaster can be a laboratory for good design and good engineering. So I appreciate you being open to that idea.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions at the commission level? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to seeing you and more of your students as well involved in this process later on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, on the action agenda, is item 23-2023. Consider the request from Angela Aronowitz at 34 North Marshall Street to allow her brother-in-law permission to have a residential permit as an exception for a caretaker. Is Ms. Aronowitz here? Thank you
here,
very
sir.
much.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you to the committee for hearing me today. My name is Angela Aronowitz, and I live at 34 North Marshall Street, apartment number 1. I am having a problem because I do not have a driver's license. I am disabled, and I am not allowed to drive due to an eye condition. My brother-in-law, who is my caretaker, picks me up. You know, he takes me to appointments, you know, errands, grocery shopping, and also, you know, helps me, him and my sister help me at my apartment. He does my lawn. He just, you know, he does everything for me. The parking permit had started a few years ago, and I cannot get obviously I can't get a parking permit because I do not have a license or a vehicle. So I had called about it because he is running into a problem where he is getting tickets, and he's helping me, so it's becoming an issue. And they had told me that I could not, they could give him a permit if I had a license. Well, I don't because I can't. I'm not allowed to. My doctor, you know, warrants that. So I'm asking if there's any possible way that you could approve him to get a permit so that he can help me, to continue to help me and not be getting these tickets. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you very, very much for your request. So let me turn it over to members of the commission.
I don't see an issue with Mr. Ryan getting a permit. The only thing is, I think he's the one that needs to be here requesting the permit, because he's going to be filling the application out for the caretaker permit. He's going to be making the payment for the caretaker permit. It would be no different as if it was an individual that needed a nurse that nurse would be the one that would be coming here saying, hey, I need to get a residential parking permit or a caretaker permit for such and such a block because I'm taking care of such and such a person in the block.
Any other comments in that regard?
Is that the process now, or do they need, caregivers don't need to come to traffic commission, do they?
I can't recall that.
We've had caregivers come to traffic commission in the past.
They have come. Has it been a requirement? I don't know that it has been.
Dave, can you speak to that?
Just a couple other comments prior to answering Cindy's question. Do we know how many apartment units are in your building?
It's a house with 2 units. There's one upstairs and one downstairs.
So certainly, we could issue a conditional permit for the brother-in-law for that, as opposed to a caretaker permit. There's really no difference. It's kind of transparent. The only issue with a conditional permit is if someone would move in there to apartment 1, then we would revoke the conditional permit. I think that's the more correct approach, to allow a conditional permit for that unit, apartment 1, for that building. That way, if there is a transition of ownership or a transition of residency, then we would be able to revoke that conditional permit for the new tenant or new resident.
So, Dave, she does not possess a permit at all for her apartment unit.
Correct.
So why would it be a condition of, if somebody from another apartment were to move in, they'd have to relinquish it? If this is her, if she is given the opportunity to have a permit as a resident in her apartment, and nobody else in that apartment that she resides in has a permit.
Correct. So I'm just freewheeling here to discuss this. We can certainly do either or. If the traffic commission approves a caretaker permit, we would issue that with the proviso that it gets reapproved every year, as we have done in the past. I think your answer to the question of does the caretaker need to appear is addressed in your motion 24-2023, is the next agenda item. So we could do, if the traffic commission approves the caretaker permit, then we would issue a caretaker permit for apartment 1 of 34 North Marshall Street.
I'm sorry, just for a matter of clarification, the reason that a conditional would require the resident of the other apartment to vacate?
No. So a conditional permit is if, for example, if a building has 3 apartments and there's only 2 permits, if it's 3 units, 1, 2, 3, if there are permits issued to apartment 1 and apartment 2, but not to apartment 3, another resident of apartment 1 or 2 can apply for a conditional permit to occupy that third allowable permit for that building, is the process.
Great, and that's related to people that live in that building.
Yes.
Okay.
So apartment 1 and apartment 2, apartment 1, someone moves in with them, whatever the situation is, and apartment 3 does not have a permit, then we would issue a conditional. Now, if the person who lives in apartment 3 would vacate and I would move in and I would like a permit, then we would revoke the conditional permit for apartment 1 and issue it to apartment 3.
So again, just for clarity, because the gentleman does not live there.
That would be, then it should be a caretaker permit. Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unless does he live there? He does not live there?
No.
Okay, right. So, yes.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just parks for me, so that's the reason why he wasn't here today. But also, my landlord who owns the building of the 2 units is his brother. So he would not have any problem at all he knows what he does for me, so
Understood.
I just wanted to,
Very good.
make that statement. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or items for clarification on this matter?
Just to be clear, that all caretaker permits need to come to Traffic Commission?
They do, and that has been the historical precedent, that caretaker permits come before the Traffic Commission, they're approved, and they need to be renewed every year. We've had multiple instances of that in the last year, probably a half a dozen or so of the folks that's where the confusion falls, which we do not want to do. So that's typically the process, and has been the process, where a caretaker permit needs to be renewed annually before the Traffic Commission. And it needs to really be done in the fall of the year,
So
whatever
that's ready for
the rhythm is, so that beginning 1/1/24, in this example, that caretaker permit would be in force, and they would not get tickets. And because they're not coming till the March meeting of 2024 to get their caretaker permit renewed.
Right.
I'd suggest that renewal be November, whatever the last meeting or whatever is of the year, so that their caretaker permit can be placed into service prior to 1/1/24.
Would that fall to the LPA to send out the notices earlier?
We send the notices, we sent 3 emails and 2 postcards
Okay,
in November. We opened the renewal season for RPP November 7th of 2022 for the 2023 calendar year program. So we have aggressively sent notifications both electronically and via postcard to the people who are on file that have an existing permit. So they would have had a 2022 permit. That's the database we pull from to send the notifications via email and via, in this case, postcards. To remind them.
I'm just thinking, because when you had mentioned that, I'm just thinking that if the permit theoretically ends the December 31st?
Yeah, permits are on a calendar year
So
basis.
that if we need to renew them, we wouldn't be renewing them till the second week of January, so there would be if they had to come back before us, they wouldn't be coming back before us until the second week of January.
Right, so that's why I'm suggesting that if the Traffic Commission approves caretaker permits going forward, that those caretaker permit folks are aware that they would need to come in November for renewal for the succeeding calendar year.
Doesn't give them much time if you send them November something, and then we meet the second Tuesday of November.
So if I can state it a little bit differently, is it possible for the parking authority to be sending those notices out a month earlier, say in October, so that they could make sure
Of
that
course.
they're lined
Sure.
up for the
I would-
November?
Absolutely. It used to be December, and we didn't send notices.
Right. But
So
different cities.
I came and we had a huge issue, and I said, this has to stop. So we went, opening the period November 7th, to selfishly to reduce this crush of people that come the last week of December.
Absolutely.
Because I'm trying to get people off for holidays, and you got people out the door trying to renew their RPP. So what the parking authority had done historically was to not enforce RPP for the month of January, to give that grace period. And I said, no, that's not okay.
It's not a good way to do it.
No, that's not no, we don't compound mistakes with additional mistakes. So we'd be happy to open it sooner. Absolutely. We do not specify in our mailings that if you're a caretaker permit, that you have to come before the Traffic Commission, because we have over 3,000 permit holders that would serve to create confusion and misunderstanding, I assure you. It's already challenging as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I take back conditional permit. I was just thinking outside the box, but I need to think inside the box in this case. So,
I always
yes.
appreciate exploring all sides of the box, but then arriving at some place that makes sense for us.
Yes, my wife says that I mutter RPP in my sleep, so that gives you a little tone and tenor.
So any comments?
I'm going to make a motion to approve 2023.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there further commentary?
I have a comment. I won't make it a question because I don't know that we need to get into this, but I'm wondering what questions we are applying discretion to when it comes to the caretaker permits. For instance, if we're not requiring additional information, we're not reviewing the health circumstances, we're not reviewing, I don't know, the timing. If we aren't requiring these things of applicants, then why isn't this an administrative function? And I note Dave's comment that he does not want to, that LPA doesn't want to just be handing these out, but I'm also wondering what additional value are we adding to the review? And if those questions are out there, then we should identify them and we should ask them of all applicants, because I sometimes feel like I'm at a loss for what we're reviewing for in some of these. And I'm sympathetic to the cause, the reason that they need the permit. So anyway, just food for thought. We don't have to get into all of it now. But.
Can I comment? Can I comment on that? I actually have a letter in
Although
my...
in the end, it really would more be the parking authority to comment.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on what he said, if I
Sure.
may. I have a letter just to show that I am on disability, because I do understand what you're saying. Just to let you
Sure.
know.
I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
in no way am I meaning to question the validity of your request, but only to say that I don't know that we're doing that consistently
value.
across all applicants. Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Smith, I would comment that I am not aware of more than a handful of caretaker permits that exist. Many have then been in place for extended years. For example, Ms. Davidson, I believe that Davidson, the first agenda item, she has had a caretaker third permit, which is often the issue, that third permit, since 2020, and she's had it for every year since. And she has come back before the Traffic Commission to renew that. But here we sit in May, and she does not have that permit for her caretaker. So I don't know if they're getting tickets, if they're parking an alternate 600 block of East End is RPP, 500 block is, and the 700 block may be. But they may be parking in they may have other arrangements for that third permit holder.
So then,
We would be happy to take that off the Traffic Commission's plate. We do require, for example, if you want a residential parking permit, but your 3 documents, insurance, registration, driver's license, do not match the application address, they have to provide proof of residency. So that's a lease, many times it's a lease for the property that they're requesting the permit to park on that block. We'd be happy to take this off the Traffic Commission and we would require proof of need or proof of caretaking that's involved. That is your prerogative as the Traffic Commission to delegate that to the parking authority, and we would welcome that just out of respect for those that need that caretaker in their homes. So, but I will leave that in your capable hands.
can we as commission foresee instances where we feel it still would be necessary to come before us for a caretaker situation?
If the LPA wants to be the stopgap to say, hey, oh, yeah, this person doesn't live at the address and they're requesting a caretaker, I'm all for LPA being able to do that, absolutely.
Then if there were a role, it might only be an appellate role, where if they were denied by the parking authority and wanted to say, I still believe I have a need.
Sure, if they flag, it's like, well, wait a minute, we've got X number of permits already issued for this address, I have an issue. Because the number of parking permits isn't the issue here.
Right.
It's just what the use of the permit is.
Right.
But if they flag an address, they're like, oh, somebody wants a caretaker permit, but this address has X number, should we ask Traffic Commission if they have any concerns or anything? But no,
That is often the case. It's that third permit request related to caretakers that triggers this action before the commission. There are 2 vehicles
Still,
already.
If it's a third permit, I don't have a problem with it being a caretaker permit because the person's gonna get it, doesn't live there. We just want to make sure as a Traffic Commission that you know that you act as a stopgap, like, yeah, they do not live there.
Right.
So we absolutely know that that person is not getting a third permit for the address. It is indeed a caretaker, off-site, different address.
Just so the commission is aware, we reject about 40% of the initial RPP permit requests for failure of documents, expired documents. People ask the question all the time, why do I have to give you my insurance every year? Why do I have to give you my driver's license? Why do I have to give you my registration every year? And the answer is because those documents expire.
Exactly.
And people get annoyed because they've had a permit for 500 years, and they don't understand why it's not on auto renewal, if you will. But we do that. Yeah, do we miss one or two? Absolutely. But our attempt is to push that window, open that window wider to apply. I would like to open it even wider. We don't get a lot of response early on in the application process.
Very good.
So it's, yeah, we open the door. That's easy to do. It takes, 20 minutes to create the new permits and et cetera. That's not the hard process. It's getting the word to the permit holders, and everybody, they're very busy typically that time of year. You have Thanksgiving, you have the holiday season. So I know while in our world, parking is super important, not everyone shares that assessment in our community. So but we would be happy to take that on. And certainly if there's an issue, we would raise it to the traffic commission if something doesn't feel right.
Okay.
So
We do have a motion on the table to approve this particular application. And a second? Is there any further discussion?
Just real quick, Sergeant Gross was saying, how come we can't, as a commission, just hand this over to LPA? And I said, the only thing I could see is if there was because I said in the past, before LPA did all this, Traffic Commission used to do all this. This is something that we had a long litany of things in years past. But maybe since LPA took over, is there anything in our rules and regs that maybe didn't get removed or updated with LPA's takeover of so many of the parking duties? If there's nothing in our rules or regs that requires us to directly be involved with this, they can be,
The ones who take care of. So I was assuming that there was, and I have not confirmed, and was going to suggest that this become two actions, one which is the approval, and then the second, which would be officially handing over that responsibility. But if there's not a need to officially hand over the responsibility, if it already exists.
I can certainly say there's no hurry. Let's take a look at this over the next month, and have it ready for the next traffic
And then
commission if
confirm.
necessary.
Ms. Smith has put up on the screen, I don't know if you can see that, but that is a 2019 document laying out the administrator responsibilities of the residential parking program. That is our guidelines, our Bible, if you will, of RPP that exists, that we use. It's well thumbed and well worn in our offices because there is an extreme amount of nuance, interpretation that exists that we have to utilize that document. It's a detailed, and it's not signed. It was issued in 2019. It's unsigned, and there's no name or prepared by or anything like that. If Ms. McCormick knows who that was, I would love to know who that person was, because it drives personally, on a personal level, drives me insane, because the nuance is extremely challenging. So for example, I'll give you an example. The 300 block of North Queen Street is not a residential parking permit block.
Right.
It is not in the program. We issue permits to the 300 block of North Queen Street. Because of the document that you have in front of you says that permits can be issued.
So, but for the 300 block of Queen, it's not a residential parking permit that you're offering,
It is.
even
It
though
is.
it's not a residential property.
Correct. Yes.
Because of the nuances that exist in the document.
It's on page 3 of the
Right.
document that Ms. Smith has up there that says a block between 2 metered blocks that are both RPP, which in this case would be Walnut and Lemon.
Mhm.
That block can be in the program.
Okay.
So there is a significant, and trust me, my parking enforcement supervisor wants to choke me out because Joe is a retired police officer who looks for the RPP sign. Because, to your point, it's not RPP. So on occasion, we'll issue a meter ticket to a person who holds a permit, because they're not checking for permits on that block, because to them, it's not an RPP block. That's an internal LPA thing, and I've addressed that.
So it's sounding to me as if we may still need to confirm what limits or limitations there may be to us offering or making it possible. We should either vote on the current motion so that she can go forward and have access, and for the next meeting, confirm if it is something that we can officially hand over, or if it does not need to be officially handed over, just the legalities of the responsibility for the conditional permits in the future.
Her permit's already been approved. Is it,
We had a motion and a second.
We
Correct.
haven't voted yet.
I apologize. Should we do that first?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll make a second comment then.
So, I'm sorry? Which is what we're trying to do. Okay, very good. So there's a motion on the table and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Sergeant.
Is it appropriate to take a look at this document, make any applicable changes, bring it back to the commission, provided it reads well for both the commission and LPA? We approve a new document and do an appropriate handoff to LPA.
I think that would be great.
Because there could be things in there that have been overlooked with the handover to LPA that may conflict with their duties and our responsibilities.
We're giving ourselves a lot of homework this session.
I think that's a great idea, and I would just remind us that we can take multiple bites at this apple, and if there are some things that make sense right off the bat, like the issue we're talking about, let's go ahead and move forward with that, and then if there are larger questions that emerge, let's continue to chew on those, but maybe we can do this in multiple steps and not let perfect be the evil of good, is that
Right.
the saying? Yeah.
Yes. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So, is that an administrative action, or do we need to make a motion to that effect for this, to review that piece of the legislation?
Well, technically, I think it's part of Action Agenda 24, 2023,
Okay.
technically.
Now, I have to tell you, I was surprised to actually see that as an agenda item. I didn't request it to be an agenda item, but it was an email that I had sent out to everybody following a conversation at the last Traffic Commission meeting, being that some conflicts came up and questions came up. For example, when we had one neighbor saying, well, I'm here because my neighbor says I can get
Right.
her permit, blah, 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 and like, well, wait a minute, do we want neighbors
So
coming here speaking for other people that aren't here?
So to just key it up, the next item is 24-2023, considering the suggestion of Mr. Evans to update rules and regs for RPP residential parking to require applicants for permit exemptions or any changes, requests outside of existing ordinances to be in attendance of the meetings. And part of that is, as he's described,
Yep.
there've been cases where the person representing in all best efforts was not able to either answer the questions that were posed or did not necessarily know the information that might have been necessary to approve.
And a lot of this could go away with the handoff to the LPA with them.
In the context of what Sergeant Gerace just described, though, we'd be looking at the RPP approval process, or that part of the ordinance, and make suggestions that would not be limited to whether someone is present, but might address other aspects of that part of the ordinance as well.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Campbell, if I may, the LPA in that document that Ms. Smith had up is been anointed the administrator of the RPP program.
uh-huh,
And I think within that overarching delineation that was issued Jan 8, 2019, it certainly may be in there. I don't know that without going through the document, but I think it would fit the tone and tenor of what that the LPA is the administrator of RPP. But it's certainly your decision at the commission
And
level.
while I agree with that, should there be something somewhere that mentions LPA in this document as administrator or something? Is Lancaster Parking Authority specifically mentioned anywhere? It isn't in 285.
The
Because so
document
much of
that's
the
there
previous-
is not part of the ordinance. It is a further delineation of 285-55. It is not the ordinance itself as stated. It is just further guidelines or further instructions, whatever adjective you want to call it. But but this is what we use. So, but it's your call. LPA is happy to take it. And if the commission wants to keep it, we're happy with that as well.
so my suggestion would, or does anyone have any other comments or want to make a suggestion on how to go forward with it?
Let's do this. We'll table this action, and we'll do this for the next commission meeting. We'll have this, and then we'll bring it out to address anything like that. We can make a point of making it an administrative move to LPA, that they can address the situation, and maybe have something in there, if needs to appeal basis, as you mentioned earlier, that it could come to us. But we need to look at what's in that ordinance and what we can do.
What's consistent and what's not
What's not,
consistent?
yes.
So there's a motion on the table,
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any other comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very, very much. So that addresses the old and action agenda items. The consent agenda, as is our practice, deals with a number of,
Sure.
no. Oh, Mr. Dastra?
ICE is Davidson first, old business that we were talking about, Cindy? Yeah.
Yes, okay. So going back to old business item 12-2023, consider the request of Isis Davidson to renew a permit exemption for 616 East End Avenue. The motion was to table the request due to the absence of the applicant.
So correct, so help me remember this old business. What was the purpose for LPA denying the renewal?
It's a caretaker property, and it's an
Yeah.
annual review.
Okay,
Under the current guidelines of an annual review.
Which is what was discussed on who's got the responsibility and who they have to continue.
Unfortunately, at this moment, they have to come back.
Right.
Hopefully by next meeting, they will not have to come back.
Right. So do we make a motion to deny, or do we table it, make the,
What is the pleasure of the commission?
I think I would make a motion to table it, because there's no basis to deny it, just other than the fact that we tend to ask these questions, and again, I'm good to approve it.
Yeah,
I'm okay
that's
with
what I think I would prefer. Rather than letting this linger and let this person.
Go ahead, Sergeant, I'm sorry.
Do you have any input for this that we need to be aware of that would cause us not to approve it?
I do not, Sergeant Gerace. She has had a caretaker permit since 2020, 2021, 2022, and the renewal for this calendar year. I'm not sure what she's doing, sitting here in May, with the request for that third permit, because that's Garden Court area, which we all know is a challenge for parking.
I'll amend my motion and just approve the caretaker permit.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Is there any comment from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
All right, so. the consent.
Okay, now we go to the consent agenda where we have a number of items tentatively improved and installed for handicap parking. There's 11 addresses for no parking signs, 2 addresses. That's item 25-2023. The next item, 26-2023, the following signs have been removed. 5 signs removed for handicap parking, no parking signs, 2 removed. And then the last consent agenda item is 27-2023. The following conditional temporary parking permits have been issued by LPA.
I make a motion to
10
approve,
of those addresses.
I'll make a motion to approve 25 through 27, 2023.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Is there any new business? So,
Mr. Campbell, I'll just note, I think, to reiterate, you should have gotten an email. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for sending that out. And just want to invite you and the public here to join our May 24th comprehensive plan event at the Ware Center. We'll have an open house for an hour or so before a formal presentation. So 4:30 to 7 p.m., May 24th at the Ware Center. We'll be discussing the comprehensive plan and for the first time debuting our policies and various policy maps to the public. So it's a significant event for us, and this is 2 years into the planning process, and we're hoping to adopt this plan at the end of the year. And very appreciative for all the public input that has gone into making that happen. Over 14,000 interactions for the plan.
Wow.
So.
Very exciting. Please come. Please join. Please listen, watch, participate. Anything else on this agenda? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.